gave me £10 million, I'd say thank you very much, but I wouldn't be a socialist. Rishi Sunak can receive £10 million. It doesn't mean he's going to be racist. I think it's going to be the downfall
of Rishi.
Well, I think
well, it's already.
He's up Pooh Creek without a paddle anyway, so I don't think...
But is the thinking that not only are they going to lose 10 million by returning this to the nation, but obviously this guy is a fat cat, he's got deep pockets.
Some reports say 15 million, actually.
Right, so how much could he potentially give in the future as well? So it couldn't just be 10 or 15 now, it could be 20 in a couple of months, it could be 30 in a year.
Well, the papers will have a field day every time he makes a donation.
Yeah, they're addicted. The Conservative Party is addicted to dirty money and dodgy deals. It's been happening for years.
Such as?
This is nothing new. Well, do you know just how much Russian money has been flowing around in the coffers?
Do you know Labour once took a donation from Max Mosley, the fascist? Should you give that money back?
Any political party will make mistakes like that.
Well, there we go then.
It's all right when it's Labour.
Well, but it's a question of scale. And really, it's off the charts.
Do we need publicly funded political parties? Is that the solution?
Well, that's a model that works in other countries, so why not look into it?
Should it be on the Labour manifesto?
Perhaps, if I had my say.
I don't want my taxes going to the Labour Party.
Well, we know that.
Right, OK, so coming up next, we're going to be discussing why Labour were discussing ferret names when they should have been discussing the actual NHS giving puberty blockers to children. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So it's been a cloudy and wet afternoon for many of us, all due to an area of low pressure that's been moving its way towards the UK through the rest of Saturday and will push its way north and eastwards overnight tonight and into the start of Sunday. This will bring some heavy rain and has already brought some heavy rain, particularly to parts of southern Scotland. We could even see some snow across the hills, and overnight and into the early hours of Sunday, some further heavy rain pushes up from the southwest, affecting parts of England and Wales. Under all that cloud and rain, it'll be a very mild night, temperatures not dropping much below 10 or 11 degrees. But further north, there will be some brighter spells, and that will allow temperatures to drop into the low single figures. So a chilly start for Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland, with some sunshine widespread across these regions in the morning. Through the afternoon, though, that band of rain pushes its way eastward, so some sunshine developing for much of England and Wales later as well. There will be some showers bubbling up through the afternoon. They could be quite heavy in places, but another very mild day. Temperatures as high as 16 or 17 degrees across the south, and even for Scotland, we could see in the double figures. Monday, a band of rain situated across the UK pushes its way eastwards, leaving a drier day for most of us. Plenty of sunshine through the rest of the morning, but for Northern Ireland, turning much cloudier as we head into the afternoon with that heavy rain arriving. It does then remain unsettled through much of next week, with temperatures widely above average for the time of year, perhaps 16 or 17.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. As always, cheers very much for your company and your emails. Your opinions much more important than ours. Lorraine has written in. It's not Lorraine Kelly, is it? She says, Dear GB News... Oh, it's definitely not Lorraine Kelly. I'm a student nurse, not only getting a loan to be a nurse, which is a disgrace. My colleague on her placement for 6 weeks hospital working in a hospital, free, not getting paid, having to pay £10 a day to park 6 weeks. It is so wrong.
She's working for free for 6 weeks and having to pay a tenner a day to park.
Yeah, why would you want to do that?
Why would you bother?
What incentive is that? Sandra's written in, and Sandra says, I did 5 years training in the NHS, including midwifery, and I did not go to university. Bring back the old school of nursing training. I mean, why... Police officers as well, they have degrees these days. It's just insane. Thomas says, I reported one to a Birmingham university some years ago. I assume he means a nurse. But they were their qualifications were brought online. Who needs a degree for nurses? No one. Caring, compassion and basic knowledge is a requirement, not a degree when you're taking blood tests all day. Well, I think nurses would argue they do a bit more than that. Now, thank you very much, Thomas. One very quick one. You're talking about recruitment of nurses. My daughter is a care worker, works 12-hour shifts, would love to do nursing, well, basically arguing that they're hiring in all of these care homes. It's cheap migrant labour, and that's Michelle. My daughter would love to train on the job to save university fees as she is saving for her own home. I would love your advice for my daughter. Well, I mean, I would love to give your daughter advice, but I think actually until politicians get serious on building housing and reducing mass migration, that ain't going anywhere anytime soon, sadly. But now, though, it's time for our next debate. I believe if we've got a debut.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I'm reintroducing my topic because I think I flubbered the introduction right at the start. But you'll be glad to know that if you thought you'd seen the end of Liz Truss, if you thought she was going away, then you're in for a surprise. Yes, the political heavyweight continues on her book tour, and this time she was back in Parliament introducing a bill on trans reform. Now, it's caused quite a bit of an uproar, in particular the provisions around stopping puberty blockers being administered to children. Now, this angers me to no end. This use of transgender children, some of the most vulnerable people in society, as a political football by opportunists like Liz Truss. I'd rather they all went away and let trans people move on with their lives. But I know that's going to be controversial today, so...
Kai, can children consent to puberty blockers?
Well, of course they can. If the parents
Can a 6-year-old consent to being tattooed?
If a child who knows themselves best, who is trans...
What, a 6-year-old?
If a parent agrees, consents, and if doctors have weighed in and allowed for puberty blockers to be administered, then they should...
There is no such thing as a trans child, in the same way there's no such thing as a vegan cat. We all know who's doing the controlling there.
No, look... Well, also,
can children consent to tattoos?
Why does this issue keep getting all this airtime when we are talking about maximum 100 children in this country who are currently on
We've got
puberty
3,000 children who are on the list waiting to get puberty blockers.
And the fact that they're on that waiting list is a positive sign. Even though I think waiting lists should be much shorter.
So, Kai, let me get something straight. Let me get something straight with you.
Time for medical advice.
Right. Let me get something straight with you. Are you saying that when a 5-year-old says, a 5-year-old boy says, I think I'm a girl, you should believe them?
Yes, right. And they can begin to socially transition in a way that's acceptable. Medical transition is different. There are safeguards in place. It's been done.
Stop talking. When my 4-year-old says, Daddy, I'm Batman, should I believe him?
No, that is a completely different... Batman is not a gender.
What's the difference? What, are you saying a 4- and 5-year-old knows what the concept of gender is?
I think from very early on, children know if they're not comfortable in their own body, if they don't feel like it fits to how they to their gender presentation.
I have to just come in here, because actually, I'd probably say, until I was 18 and comfortable being a gay man, if someone...
Really?
I know I'm gay, guys, by the way, in case you didn't know. But until I came to that realisation, if someone told me I could snap my fingers and become a girl, I literally would have done it.
The trans movement
and I think the idea that at 5 years old, a child who thinks they might be a girl, their parents have got to believe them. If my mum had done that, I'd be a detransitioner. I just think this is a nonsense opinion.
Which is happening more and more.
Well, it is happening more and more, and this is the issue. I agree. I want us to have a more rational, evidence-based discussion about this. But the truth is, when we look at the evidence about puberty blockers, actually, when people do go on to transition, even if they've been on puberty blockers, it can cause huge problems. If we think about the operation that people have to get to turn what is a male sexual organ into a female sexual organ, if the male sexual organ is not fully developed, it's very difficult to turn that into a female sexual organ. And that happens if you've been on puberty blockers. There is research on this.
But I would be able to find studies to say exactly to the contrary. I found some in my preparation.
Do you know?
It's contested. Let me finish. This is contested. None of us are medically trained. And what angers me is political commentators and politicians who should know better giving so much airtime to this tiny,
but he's got kids. You're telling
issue.
a man who's got kids. I think this is a scandal bigger than the post office scandal. I really, really do. Because you are medicalising children on drugs that you know absolutely nothing about.
By the way,
it's grotesque.
But leave that up to the doctors and the experts in this field.
Stephanie, what do you think about this?
Files from WPATH came out, they were leaked, and they said that one young girl may have had liver cancer down to the puberty blockers, hormone.
Do you know what drug they give? Do you know what drug they give young children? Do you know the name of it? You don't know it. No. It's called Lupron. They give it to paedophile sex offenders in America to chemically castrate them. They give it to prostate cancer patients and it castrates them. Even if they decide later on to stop with the transition process, most of the time they're deemed infertile. It's an absolute disgrace that people like you think children... You're telling children, innocent kids, 4, 5, 6-year-olds, they're born in the wrong body. And actually the trans movement is deeply homophobic because as Albie's explained, you're telling gay kids that they're born in the wrong body and they should be chopping off their body parts. It's an absolute disgrace. And there's a reason the NHS banned it from hospitals across England.
Kai, I understand what you're saying because when we talk about trans and any issues around that, there seems like the motive behind it seems there's a lot of hate, a lot of animosity. But the thing is, it is a cause for concern. Like, this is a lifelong decision. I think people just see it as, oh, you change your gender, or if a child wants to change her gender, what happens when there's ramifications towards their health, their mental health? I think there's not this long-term solution from them which people are not looking at, and that's where the scare, the frighteningness of it comes into it.
I think so much of what we've heard today, what we hear in political debates, is just not backed by evidence. So many of the claims...
Why has the NHS banned it then?
So many of the claims I've heard, you can find opposing opinions.
Why has the NHS banned it?
It's still allowed in exceptional cases. And
on clinical trials, it's allowed.
That they socially transition first, and then
on clinical trials. So we're essentially saying that young children, in the name of ideology, are glorified lab rats.
Puberty blockers are fully... well, almost completely physically reversible.
No, they're not. No, they are not. That is a lie. It's an absolute lie.
Not a lie.
It's a lie. It's not. It leaves most children infertile.
And there are different studies to say exactly the contrary of what you're saying. I'm sorry.
From Mermaids or some activist charity, but Pink News. Did you find that on Pink News?
Haven't been involved with Pink News.
Up next, it's well, we're going to be talking. Who is going next? Actually, there's only one person.
Well, so, that one person is me.
But we're going for a quick break first. But you're going to be talking about why you want the royals to come clean about the Princess of Wales and explaining why. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
Free Speech Nation. Sunday nights from 7 p.m.
Our first question comes from Elliot. Elliot, hello.
Is Canada now an authoritarian state?
Elliot, I think it's been an authoritarian state for a while. I mean, under Trudeau, this is a new thing now, and this is coming from the Justice Minister, who has Arif Virani, and he has defended this new power for their online harms bill. That sounds familiar. We've got something quite similar. And they're saying they can now impose house arrest on someone who they think might commit a hate crime in the future, right? That's scary stuff, isn't it?
there's obviously a very dark side to this, because you can't, or in my opinion, you shouldn't be able to imprison somebody before they've done anything.
Right. Well, it is Canada, and I know you in this country, you kind of respect Canada as a country. America didn't even know it was a country until recently, and I think that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to show themselves to be different than America.
I think America has a responsibility to invade. You know what? I do.
You know, you're kidding, but it may come down to this, or this may just be yeah, maybe.
Well, I just think it's ridiculous that the idea of arresting someone... I mean, our government's bad enough, and the Scottish government's out of control, the Irish government's out of control. They're all talking about... I mean, the Irish government's got a new hate crimes bill where they're talking about they can seize your phone if they suspect you might have some material that could potentially stir up hatred. I mean, for God's sake, what does that mean? Your phone's full of that kind of thing.
Well, the government knows that.
Yeah.
But you're right. But it has to do with the bigger picture, which is Canada has sucked itself in on the big team world. Sorry, I'm going to say it. It's big team world. And what they're doing, this is not even a free speech issue. This is just about silencing dissent against the Canadian government. It has nothing to do with openness and talk, whatever. It's like saying, we don't want these people to spread their opinions.
Dangerous opinions. That's what speech codes and hate speech laws always do.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday Five. You'll be pleased to learn that nobody was harmed during the break. Now, as always, thank you very much for your emails about tonight's topics. Elizabeth's written in. Elizabeth, good evening. She says, Miss Abbott should be allowed back into the party. It would be great to see Mr Starmer, Sir Starmer to you, Elizabeth, trying to manage his election chances with her back in the fold. I wouldn't rate them. I can see Kai with a nervous look. Barbara's written in, Abbott is a pretty nasty person, but it's her character, not her colour, that should be judged. Absolutely.
Agreed.
I think we all agree on that. And Dawn says, puberty blockers are disgustingly abusive and immoral for any child to endure.
Correct.
Now, it's time for our next debate. I think there's only one man left for the job.
That's right, Darren. It is the question which is storming the nation. Where is Kate? We've all seen the weird picture. We've all heard the conspiracy theories. And after this week's absolute shambles, we're now scratching our heads as to whether or not the conspiracy theories are actually true. I mean, what were Kensington Palace thinking by releasing this picture that had been edited by the Princess of Wales with all of these mistakes on it? Look at them in that picture. The weird hand, the weird hair, just things that don't look quite right, giving credence to these conspiracy theories. So I think it is time that the palace came clean about what has been going on with Catherine, Princess of Wales, because otherwise the speculation is just going to keep going on and on and on. And besides, if they had nothing to hide, why wouldn't they just release the original picture in the first place?
The palace said that they would give an update after Easter.
That's it.
And that's it.
Yeah,
why are you so obsessed with a woman's health?
You are bullying a woman.
And that's it. And it's all about medical privacy. If you're going through a health condition which you're not ready to talk about, why should you just be forced, just because you're a princess and the future queen of the country, forced to come out and explain what's going on with you? To be honest, I just think it's people being nosy. Catherine could be going through something really serious. And the problem is she comes out, she says, this is what I'm going through. She's going to have to be the poster girl for that. forever.
Like the king
She's gonna
has
forever.
with cancer,
Yeah.
right? He has, hasn't he?
He's chosen to talk about that because he's...
And his prostate before that, which
Yeah.
was really important because a lot of men... there wasn't an uptick in people actually going forward, getting tested.
But, Ben Leo, the country's going mad. I mean, it's not something that many people were calling for to begin with, but because of how the situation has been handled, this picture, the conspiracy theories are going wild, isn't it just time they came clean?
You're talking to a man who has never uploaded a picture on Instagram.
All natural. No, look, they made a massive mistake with that picture. I don't actually believe that Kate herself sat there editing it. I think if you believe that, you believe that, you know... I don't know. But the fact is that actually I've heard that they've got a new comms team in place over the past couple of months, and actually they're having a bit of a hard time with things. But the situation still stands as is. Kate is ill. The palace said they'll give an update after Easter, and we're not even at Easter yet. So let the public go wild about it. I understand that Kate, or whoever edited the picture, hasn't done the conspiracy theorists any favours, but after all, it's just Twitter, it's online, it's Instagram, it's online, you know...
Kai, this is damaging the monarchy, isn't it?
Well, I mean, come off it. I think that, you know, what we've seen is a royal family that's not ready for the social media age, that hasn't recognised that things have changed. But they also can't have it both ways. They can't have privacy in some circumstances and then release public pictures in the other. I mean,
the
really.
reason why they were forced to put that picture is because of all these conspiracy theorists saying that Kate's, you know, hiding somewhere or whatever. But it's like because they can't have any quiet for her to recuperate. That's why they have to do these kind of things.
But as Albie said...
They're meeting us halfway. You give the public an inch, then they're going to want to take a mile.
They've given us nothing.
They gave us an edited picture. And it's caused even more conspiracy theories.
Did they need to tell us that Kate had gone in for planned abdominal surgery? Did they? We wouldn't have been none the wiser about it.
This is a woman who, 3 hours after giving birth, was parading their child to the well-wishers outside.
That's what the royals do.
That's what they do.
That's what the royals do.
So I don't think you... Again,
do you think she wants to do that? Do you think she wants to come out on the steps of the Lido wing parading her newborn baby?
But they did it, and then Meghan Markle comes under criticism for not being willing to share so much.
But not being willing to share so much. That woman has never known a part of her life that she doesn't want to share.
Thank you for bringing up Meghan Markle.
I wouldn't be surprised if she starts an OnlyFans next.
Darren, what an awful thing to say. I mean, I'm sure... Anyway, I'm not going to go there. But the point is, right,
sure it would be
don't you think it would be very different if the Duchess of Sussex had made a similar error? I think you will be singing a different tune. You'd be condemning her. You know, we've had all of these columns in the Daily Mail and the Telegraph today talking about, you know, we should be supporting Kate. Meghan wouldn't get any of that.
And actually, where's the support from Harry and Meghan been? They denied going to the New York Post saying that, oh, Meghan would never have made such a stupid mistake as Kate.
I don't think she would have done.
Of course it came from them. And then also, at the same time as Kate being ill, when Harry and William were at their event, the tribute event to their mum, was it yesterday or the day before, Meghan decides it's going to be a great idea on the very same day, as she's done before,
Ask the
to launch
question,
her new online lifestyle
if
brand.
Meghan Markle had done this, do you
narcissist.
think the way that she would be treated would be different?
No, it'd be the same.
Absolutely.
No. Meghan got ripped to shreds.
Sources close to Kensington Palace and Kate have said that she's been very sad and distraught and upset about the bullying and the commentary that's happened since the photo editing saga.
Well, this is what Meghan goes through all the time. She gets bullied every day online.
And then some. And at the urging
Even
of
if
the
Meghan
exact same press teams that are now complaining that Kate Middleton's coming under that much scrutiny. Yeah. They were the ones briefing in all these stories.
I'd argue Kate's made one mistake over decades, and Meghan Markle came here, things didn't work out, she stomped her feet, she lied and lied and lied,
because she
tried to paint the royals as racist.
She always wanted to set up a lifestyle brand, selling people expensive gunk or whatever it is that she's selling.
Meghan.
Yeah, well, good for her, but she always wanted to do that, and she didn't want to do charity galas and cut cakes in this country.
Well, that's
because the media was so horrible to her, Darren.
No, they weren't. Albie, the front page of the Sun newspaper on the day she was married
folks,
said,
we're going to have to go to a break. There's plenty more to come on the second hour of the Saturday 5, including an interview with Matthew Stadlin. You're watching the Saturday 5 on GB News.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So it's been a cloudy and wet afternoon for many of us, all due to an area of low pressure that's been moving its way towards the UK through the rest of Saturday and will push its way north and eastwards overnight tonight and into the start of Sunday. This will bring some heavy rain and has already brought some heavy rain, particularly to parts of southern Scotland. We could even see some snow across the hills, and overnight and into the early hours of Sunday, some further heavy rain pushes up from the southwest, affecting parts of England and Wales. Under all that cloud and rain, it'll be a very mild night, temperatures not dropping much below 10 or 11 degrees. But further north, there will be some brighter spells, and that will allow temperatures to drop into the low single figures. So a chilly start for Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland, with some sunshine widespread across these regions in the morning. Through the afternoon, though, that band of rain pushes its way eastward, so some sunshine developing for much of England and Wales later as well. There will be some showers bubbling up through the afternoon. They could be quite heavy in places, but another very mild day. Temperatures as high as 16 or 17 degrees across the south, and even for Scotland we could see in the double figures. Monday, a band of rain situated across the UK pushes its way eastwards, leaving a drier day for most of us. Plenty of sunshine through the rest of the morning, but for Northern Ireland, turning much cloudier as we head into the afternoon with that heavy rain arriving. It does then remain unsettled through much of next week, with temperatures widely above average for the time of year, perhaps 16 or 17.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We've got cash, treats and a spring shopping spree to be won in a great British giveaway. You could win an amazing £12,345 in tax-free cash. Plus, there's a further £500 of shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. We'll also give you a gadget package to use in your garden this spring. That includes a games console, a pizza oven and a portable smart speaker, so you can listen to GB News on the go. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
Should we put tobacco-style warnings on ultra-processed foods? Boris Johnson is calling on the government to do this. In this Daily Mail column, the former Prime Minister says that people don't know what they're feeding their families and there's too many extra ingredients. That's why I'm asking, should we put tobacco-style warnings on ultra-processed food? Well, joining me now to discuss, Steve Miller, former presenter of Fat Families, Helena Davidson, campaigner and policy expert at the Vegan Society. Right, so I'm going to start with you. Steve Miller, what do you think?
Oh, I'm applauding Boris today. Good on you, mate. And the reason for that is we know that the research on the warnings on cigarettes, I should say, when those warnings were visual, they worked very well. The second reason on a practical level is that we need to stop looking and listening before we start, grazing and putting things in the trolley. And the third thing is that these kind of signs, or these warnings, I should say, are kind of hypnotic. They trigger the emotion. So they're much more likely to get people to think and maybe resist.
Yeah, so at the Vegan Society, we're broadly in favour of increasing consumer knowledge when it comes to the nutritional value of people's food. But I think it's important to mention that ultra-processed food isn't an issue that's exclusive to vegans. And whilst most meat alternatives will fall into the ultra-processed food category, it largely depends on how we're going to look at how UPFs are going to be assessed, because vegan alternatives that fall under ultra-processed foods, they're actually, on average, healthier than meat products or ultra-processed foods that contain animal products. Really? So I think it depends on how we look at it. We might have to take a closer look at the nutritional profile of individual foods rather than the level of processing.
It's Saturday night, and this is the Saturday Five. I'm Darren Grimes, still along with Albie Almond Corner, Stephanie Tetchy, Ben Leo, and Kai Wilshaw. You guys at home don't know how lucky you are. The Saturday Five is, of course, now 2 hours, so here we are for another one. If you're not sick of Ben Leo's smug face yet, there's plenty of time. It's 7 p.m, and this is the Saturday Five. Coming up, two of us will be going head-to-head in the Saturday Scrap. You won't want to miss that. And we'll tackle 5 quick-hit topics in Bunch of 5. Then we're going to be answering your questions in Ask the Five. Send your question through at gbviews@gbnews.com. Try and make it a little bit, safe for television before 9 p.m. But first of all, we're going to get you news with Aaron.
Very good evening to you. It's 7:01. I'm Aaron Armstrong. Thousands of customers haven't had their online shopping delivered after major supermarkets were hit by an IT fault. Sainsbury's say the issues today have now been resolved, but orders won't be going out until tomorrow. Contactless payments back up and running, they say, in their stores. Earlier, shoppers had to queue for cash machines to get their groceries. Tesco, though, have still experienced some technical outages in store and online, and both supermarkets have apologised for the inconvenience. Vaughan Gething is set to become the next First Minister of Wales after winning the Labour leadership election. Mr Gething, who'll become the first black leader of any European country, won a narrow contest with 51.7% of the vote. His only rival, Jeremy Miles, got 48.3%. And he's expected to replace Mark Drakeford as First Minister on Wednesday following a vote in the Senate, and says after 25 years of devolution, he remains committed to the cause.
But today, we turn a page in the book of our nation's history. A history that we write together. Not just because I have the honour of becoming the first black leader in any European country, but because a generational dial has jumped too. Like Ken and Jane, devolution is not something that I have had to get used to or to adapt to or to apologise for. Devolution. Welsh solutions to Welsh problems and opportunities is in my blood.
Scotland's First Minister says the SNP must win the upcoming general election. Addressing the party's campaign council in Perth, Humza Yousaf called on members to make history by making Scotland, in his words, Tory-free. He claims most Scottish seats in the next general election are a straight fight between the SNP and the Tories, and says the campaign won't be easy, claiming our opponents will throw everything at us.
The prize for Scotland isn't just this constituency. We have the opportunity to ensure that Scotland is Tory-free. Not a single Tory MP left in Scotland. Delegates, that is definitely a prize worth fighting for.
Well, motorists have been avoiding the M25 today after the first ever planned daytime closure. It began late last night and will run through the weekend. Drivers have been warned to stay away from junctions 10 and 11 in Surrey. That's a 5-mile stretch. That remains closed until 6 a.m. on Monday morning. An 11.5-mile diversion route has been created to direct traffic along A roads. And in rugby union, Ireland have retained the Six Nations title after beating Scotland 17-13 in Dublin. Scotland scored first with a penalty, but a Dan Sheehan try gave Ireland a 7-6 lead at half-time. Another try in the second half from Andrew Porter, converted by that man, Jack Crowley, looked to have given Ireland some breathing space. But Scotland hit back through Hugh Jones, a late try, setting up a nervy finish in the Aviva Stadium. But Ireland hung on. They're the champions, and it's their second year winning in a row. Well, for the latest stories, you can sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now back to the Saturday Five.
It's Saturday night and you're with the Saturday Five. I'm Darren Grimes and I can promise that you're in for another very lively hour. We're going to start with our big interview. Friend of the channel, Matthew Stadlen, has always disagreed with the idea that London is lawless. In 2021, he tweeted, "He's never been mugged in the capital and never will be." However, that changed this week when Matthew was a victim of crime. His phone snatched from his hand as he walked his dogs. So has that changed his opinion on so-called lawless London? Matthew Stadlen joins me and Stephanie Tecci now.
Matthew, I'm so sorry to hear that this has happened. Obviously, like for most people who've been mugged on the streets of London, it's an awful experience. Are you feeling a bit shaken up about it, a bit surprised that that even happened yesterday?
First, thank you very much for your sympathy. That's rather nice because not everyone's been sympathetic on Twitter, as you might expect. I'm not shaken up at all. In fact, the day after it happened, once I'd got a new phone, and credit where it's due to Vodafone, they got me off the ground very quickly indeed. I went back and did my own detective work, went door to door, and I have got incredible CCTV footage of literally the moment it happened.
Wow.
From multiple angles, right? So there you can see it. And what happened? This is the chat. What happened was I was walking along. I was on the phone on loudspeaker on my right hand to my mum, and she was giving me some information that I wanted to input into the phone. So I stood still on the edge of the pavement, as you could see. I had the dog's leads in my left hand, and I was typing away in my right hand while also speaking. So I was multitasking. That looks like a static image. It wasn't. This guy came from at high speed from behind.
Wow.
And before I knew it, my phone was gone. My instincts, and I'm hoping to load some video footage up of this as well, my instinct was to charge after the bloke. So I rushed after him, but I could see from the CCTV that he moved 10 metres in a single second. Now, I'm not recommending that people charge after their muggers, but that's in all reality what I did. Obviously, it's a distressing thing to happen, but my concern is partly to let GB News viewers know that this sort of thing actually does happen quite a bit. Two of my closest friends this has happened to, one of them twice, all 3 occasions in London. So please be vigilant and don't be daft like I was, because I was standing there. I was a sort of sitting duck. That doesn't mean that I'm not angry with the guy who stole my phone. Of course I am, and I want the police to catch him, and I want them to do their job, ideally, rather than me doing their detective work for them.
And definitely, you know, people do need to be vigilant when these things are, you know, when you're out and about with your mobile phone. But what's quite interesting is you were saying that a lot of critics are saying this is a reflection of how London has failed when it comes to being a multicultural city, which I personally don't think that's the case. I just think crime is on a rampant anywhere you go in the world. Why do you think critics are so fast to put the two together?
Well, actually, perhaps even more eventful than the theft of my phone was the fact that since I put that image up and since I announced that I had my phone stolen, the pile-ons that I've experienced on Twitter, I know Darren's experienced 1 or 2 of his own, have been quite extraordinary. I mean, this has happened to me a few times, that people have launched attacks at me, both in the UK and sometimes, as has happened in this case, from the other side of the Atlantic. And look, I've got a thick skin. I put myself out there, but people dug up a tweet, a post that I put up about 3 years ago, as Darren has already shown, saying, I've never been mugged and never will be. And I'm a confident guy, right? I'm 6'3", I'm 16 stone, I'm trained in various ways of handling myself. I don't walk around my home city scared or intimidated, and that will never change. In this case, there is a sort of grey area. Was I mugged, given that no force was used on my body and no threat of force? Or was I the victim of theft? Whichever it is, it was a bad crime.
Well, indeed, Matthew, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but I would say, though, that even Elon Musk, right, even Elon Musk has gotten involved, and he replied to what was a putting together of the 2 tweets that you'd put out, and he replied, and you said, Elon Musk thinks my phone getting nicked is amusing, classy guy. But Elon Musk, though, is actually, I assume, were he here to defend himself, would argue that he's pointing out the liberal hypocrisy, Matthew, which he's saying, look, you said in 2021, you know, you feel safe in London, you're not going to be mugged in London. As you've said, you're a tall guy, you're able to defend yourself. But even you you have been caught off your guard and mugged, does that therefore suggest that under Sadiq Khan, London ain't safe, and have you changed your mind?
No, first of all, I love my home city. Born and bred in London. It's a fantastic place. It is so rich in entertainment, in sport. I was at Twickenham last weekend. In
knife
food,
crime, a whole host of things. It's very rich.
Let me come back to the knife crime thing. I mean, I've been in this game for a long time. I'm 44 now in this journalistic profession. And I remember in 2005, there was a horrible spike, it seemed, in knife crime. This knife crime isn't new. And let me say this. It is an evil that we need to do everything we can, both through good policing and proper community initiatives, to root out of our capital city, as we do anywhere else. We absolutely have to do that. I am tough on crime. If there is a crime, it needs to be properly investigated, and the perpetrators need to be dealt with. But let me address this multicultural issue, if I may, Darren, because one of the things that I experienced early on in one of these pylons in the last couple of days was this idea that I was somehow the victim of multiculturalism, which apparently I had championed, okay? And let me put that lie to bed. The people who were saying that had no idea what colour of skin or what culture the thief was from. And I've been sending a lot of people to Specsavers since I put that.
All right,
Matthew,
I'm just going to bring in Ben Leal because he wants to come back on that very point.
Good evening, Matthew. It's your old friend Ben. Look, you're saying that people piled onto you with this multiculturalism thing. You were the one who first brought up skin colour. You tweeted, ironically for the racist, the thief looks as though he's white. Actually, Matthew, he's not white. Look at his left hand. He's quite clearly black. So you're the one that started this, not the so-called pile-oners.
So you've made two mistakes there, Ben, which is quite an effort in the space of 20 seconds. The first is, I did not start this. The people who came on, and before any picture I had put up, any evidence, they came on and said I was the victim of multicultural London. They had no idea who the thief was. So that's the first point. They started it, the racists. And let me clear up this second point.
Are they just looking at the stats, statistically?
Hang on. We must make no assumptions about who commits a crime and who doesn't. We take each crime on its merits, right? On the facts. And if you look closely at that picture, you're wrong.
Look at his left hand.
No. Both hands are gloved. He's wearing black gloves on both hands. And if you look at the gap, Ben, between the peaked helmet and the mask, which goes right up to his eyes, to my eye, he looks like he's white. So on every level...
OK, well, as far as I can see, and a lot of other people online, if you look at his left hand, he's wearing a glove in his right hand, which is covered. His left hand isn't gloved because he uses it to snatch the phone with to get a better grip. Can you remember what hand he snatched your phone with?
Both hands were gloved, I can tell you that. But if you want to go to Specsavers and join all the other trolls, then you be my guest.
I mean, do you think there's a point to be made, anyone, that actually, you know, people like Matthew who do defend Sadiq Khan, who do defend London, who do defend multiculturalism, that actually people have a point to point out?
No, they don't have a point. What's this got to do with multiculturalism? I've got to say, I'm with Matt on this, actually. Knife crime has always been around. It was around in the Victorian times. Theft has been around since people had things that we can steal. It's not something that only black people do. Yes, we do know there is an over-representation of black Britons in the criminal justice system. I have never been one to shy away from that fact. But I don't understand what Matt Stadlen getting mugged in whichever road in a fancy part of London he got mugged on is to do with multiculturalism. It's to do with criminality.
Do you remember even just a few months ago, the Met Police put out that massive PR release about this phone gang that had been nabbed? They went undercover in Soho, pretended to be boozed-up punters, and this gang would swipe phones and Rolexes. They were all black. And they weren't English either. They might have British passports, but they were from Somalia and wherever else. They weren't, you know, they weren't Brits.
Ben, you'll recall I actually spoke about it in a monologue on this show, and I would like to hear what Matt has to say about this, because I actually found a number of things you just said, Ben, quite offensive.
What?
Yeah, I found that very offensive. You said that British people are not British, Ben. I mean, what planet are you living on? People are British if they have British passports. Let me move on from this sort of rather dark alleyway we seem to be crawling down right now. I want to ask you guys a question about the police, okay? I'm a journalist, I'm not a detective. But I was the one who went door to door and got this CCTV footage, as I say, from multiple angles. You can look at the bike in that close-up. There's a distinctive red line, right? I would hope that we live in a society where journalists don't have to go and do that sort of work, but the police do it themselves. Now, is this because the police are underfunded by 14 years of Conservative governments? Or should we be pointing our finger at the police themselves? Have we just given up on this level of crime?
Okay.
And before
So,
you say
Matthew-
hang on. Before you say it's low-level crime, guys, a mobile phone is worth about £1,000. Plus, it has loads of private information that is like
Hey, I don't
valueless.
think that at all.
Should we not be taking this seriously?
Yes.
Matthew, you're kind of proving Darren's initial point about Sadiq Khan. He's in charge of the police. On one hand, you're saying London's safe, getting mugged is part and parcel of living in a big city, and the next minute you're complaining that it's unsafe because you're getting mugged and the police aren't there. So which one is it?
No. Let me answer that. Of course you get crime in any big city. And of course, as I've made clear all the way through this conversation, where there's crime, it needs to be clamped down on. I'm not personally blaming Sadiq Khan. The funding of the police is down to this government. And I would like to know why the police themselves, operationally, don't seem to take this sort of crime, from my anecdotal experience, seriously enough. Because if I'd been a little old lady or a little old man, it might have been traumatising. It wasn't for me. It could be for other people.
Have you got your phone back yet? What's the latest?
He has. He went to Vodafone. He's just given Vodafone
I'm actually
a
doing
plug.
this. I've just come off stage at the Oxford Literary Festival, and I've got a new phone thanks to Vodafone. The other one's probably in China.
Right.
But they've not caught the culprit, no? Any update from the cops?
Well, the police, I have to say, have been pretty near useless in this. And that doesn't mean all the police are bad. And I'm only talking anecdotally.
Hang on, Matthew.
But
I've got a question for you. What are you... You said... You tweeted something about being proficient in martial arts. I want to know about that. Why didn't you kung fu chop the man?
Well, Darren, all I can say, and I do mean this seriously, I hope this doesn't happen to you, because I wouldn't wish crime on anybody, certainly not you, Darren. But when you have someone coming at high speed on either an electric bike or an electric motorbike, whichever it was, and there seems to be some debate, and you are not paying attention, by the way, I should have been, as I've said, and he comes right up behind you, he doesn't have to use any force or attempt to use any force because he's so proficient at it himself. And by the time, and honestly, if I ever get to upload the video from the other angle, I will, he's so fast that even I charge after him with the poor dogs, he's gone. There's no way. I was shouting, I was charging off, he turned right, went down towards Holland Park Avenue, and he was gone. The martial arts, mate, don't come into it. And by the way, I should say, I have a little son and I have a wife, and my mobile phone would not have been worth me trying to sort of wrestle with that chap.
I agree. I mean, Kai, you haven't spoken. I want to bring you in briefly. We haven't got very long left. But I want to ask, do you think actually this is going to get better under a Labour government? Because Matthew keeps going back to the funding point. Or do you think that actually a Labour government that wants to add more burdens on the police, like making misogyny a crime or misgendering a crime, that actually the police are going to be far too busy to look for Matthew's phone?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely going to be improving, given that public services under these recent governments, you know, public services are fighting over scraps. I mean, the amount of money that we're talking about is ridiculous that's been taken out of the health service and, indeed, out of the police.
They have not defunded the NHS at all.
You see record levels. You see a campaign to underfund all sorts of public services across the country.
That's conspiracy theory territory, that. Absolutely is.
You see it time and time again, and it's part of the reason why the Tories are now polling at 20%. I mean, it's absurd. Anybody can see it. It's clear as day.
Always champing at the bit there. One final question.
Matthew, just going back to your point about the Britishness and whether a passport makes you British. I mean, that's the big talking point at the moment with these Palestine marches. In my opinion, just because someone's got a British passport, it doesn't mean they're British. Quite clearly, these gangs who have come from Africa, they might be second-generation immigrants, but they're not ingrained in British society. As I've said, it's a big problem with these Palestine marches. Just as a small example, where the concern is that you've got people living here, working here, maybe taking benefits here, who aren't doing their bit to be inclusive in the British way of life.
Let me take you out of your echo chamber just briefly, right? I'll tell you something about British values, right? And I'm British to my core. British values involve respecting human beings, taking them as we find them, calling someone British when they are British, and not trying to gaslight people into thinking other things. And, by the way, it means that whatever colour skin, whatever cultural influences people have, if they break the law, if they are Islamophobic, anti-Semitic, whatever it is, if they break the law, then the full force of the law should come down on them. We treat each other as human beings, as we'd expect to be treated ourselves. I could not give two hoots whether the colour of that skin of the guy who nicked my phone was black, yellow, purple, or blue.
It's a judge of their character.
I don't care what food he cooks at home either. What I care is that he nicked my phone, and I want him to get nicked as a result.
All right, okay.
I don't care either about skin colour. It's about character and culture.
Calm down.
It's about character and culture. That's what I'm saying.
We're going to move on. Thank you very much, Matthew. I'm glad you're OK. Now, some viewers at home may well be of the view that, you know, if you vote for Police and Crime Commissioner Sadiq Khan, it ain't going to get any better. But hey-ho, that's one opinion. Now, spring is in the air, and so is your chance to win a garden gadget package, a shopping spree and an incredible 12,345 quid in tax-free cash. Here's how you could make those prizes all yours.
We've got cash, treats and a spring shopping spree to be won in a great British giveaway. You could win an amazing £12,345 in tax-free cash. Plus, there's a further £500 of shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. We'll also give you a gadget package to use in your garden this spring. That includes a games console, a pizza oven and a portable smart speaker, so you can listen to GB News on the go. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Now, still to come tonight, I hope that whet your appetite because we've got proof that Saturday night is all right for fighting. Ben Leo says the health service, the NHS, their net zero drive illustrates how far down its list of priorities for patients are. So does the NHS prefer electric ambulances to saving your life? We'll discuss. Resident lefty Kai Wilshaw will go head-to-head with him very soon. Someone put the defibrillator on standby. You're with the Saturday 5 Live on GB News.
Mark Dolan Tonight. Weekends from 9 p.m.
I've personally been very torn on whether Prince Harry should have full police protection when he's in the United Kingdom. On the one hand, why should taxpayers fork out for somebody that's left the country and the institution? He is no longer a working, serving royal. But I don't think it matters. He is one of the most famous men in the world, and whether he's a royal or not, he is an ambassador for this country. And he still does good. Charitable causes, the Invictus Games, and he is still a nice and charming guy with a heart. And whilst he has left the royal family and departed these shores, he was and remains the son of King Charles. That is a biological fact. Well, let's hope so. And it wasn't his choice to be born into royalty. It wasn't his choice to be the son of the king. And for that reason, I think he should have equal police protection to his brother William when he is in this country. He couldn't be a more high-profile figure, and unfortunately, like all the royals, Harry will be a target for some very bad people. I fear that if, God forbid, anything happened to him or his family, the authorities would have blood on their hands. So, it's not often that I back Prince Harry, but on this one, he has my support. Look what happened to his poor mum, killed in a Paris tunnel in the 1990s with an allegedly drunk chauffeur. A top royal security insider recently told me that Diana would still be with us today if she had had top royal protection at that time. So let's not make the same mistake twice. Prince Harry needs full protection and the best we've got. Yes, he might be a numpty, but he's our numpty.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday Five. As ever, cheers very much for your emails. Sandra's written in. Sandra says, don't hold Kate to ransom because of a picture mistake. Like her, I had 3 abdominal surgeries, good God, which are a massive challenge to recover from. I'm so sorry. Let her recover without added stress, please. She certainly deserves it, which is sort of what you were saying. Dave says, why should anyone have to tell the world what is wrong with them? Perhaps Kate doesn't want her children to know and be worried. That's a fair point. Susan says, Ben, I'm with you all the way. Just because someone gets a British passport does not make them British. Well, that's a contentious one with the panel. Thomas says police funding is wasted on the marches, that's the pro-Palestine ones, when it should be spent on everyday policing. That's a good point, very good point. Christine says, Darren, what a fibber Matthew is. Matthew Stadlin, that is. We all know men can't multitask. That's another contentious one for the panel. Right, now it's time for tonight's main event. If I had one of those boxing bells, I would ring it. That's it, thank you very much. There we are, don't say we don't do things by half. Never mind the thriller in Manila or the rumble in the jungle. We have a Saturday scrap way bigger than all of that. In the red corner, we have Kai, the Count Bill Show, and in the blue corner, we have Ben, the Bomber Leo. And Ben is fixated on the news that the NHS is set to roll out a fleet of electric ambulances as part of its commitment to combating climate change. He says it's proof they're putting net zero targets above patient safety. Take it away, lads. It's round one.
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys saw this week, the NHS is rolling out a swathe of electric ambulances across the country. They're going to sacrifice patient safety at the altar of the green agenda. It's a green agenda. It's an absolute scam in my book. At the moment, ambulances, petrol ambulances, they can drive up to 800 miles a day. They need refuelling every other day. And also, how long does it take to refuel? Just a few minutes at the petrol station. Green ambulances, it's been reported, will only be able to travel up to 100 miles a day before needing a 4-hour recharge. There was a trial in the West Midlands. People raised serious concerns about patient safety. And also, as part of that, they're delivering chemo medicine by e-bike, amongst another. You find it funny. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. It's actually devastating to patient health. So my claim is, Kai, that this green agenda isn't just killing people worldwide. The NHS now, instead of focusing on excess patient waiting lists, excess deaths around the world, they care more about hitting stupid green targets than they do about patients in England.
No. Let me give you a bit of a lesson here, because the key word in that monologue was trial. Yes, there's a pilot scheme currently underway, which will be reported on and reviewed. There are net zero targets up until 2040, but if you think that you're going to go against the grain and go against the mainstream view in every large organisation across the world that these targets are necessary and that environmental damage and climate change will cause more long-term harm than if we don't act. Right. Now, if you really think that you're going to buck that trend at the cost of the health of the planet, then I think you're like King Canute holding back the tide.
Do you know how much this electric ambulance fleet is going to cost the NHS if it goes ahead?
It's going to make operational savings in the long term.
No.
Did you know that?
£500 million a year. £500 million a year. This trial in the West Midlands have already said it's going to put patient safety at risk. And do you know what? This whole green agenda, in England, we're going to focus on England because that's where the ambulances are being trialled. Do you know how much we've reduced our carbon emissions over the past, say, 40 years?
How much? Tell
More
me.
than any other nation on Earth by about 40%. Do you know what the global UK emissions are of CO2 compared to the rest of the world?
I know that we're making vast improvements. Let me tell you why that is.
1%.
Let me tell you why that is.
One more question. Do you know how many staff members the NHS has hired in their dedicated green team, their annual combined salary? Do you know? 48 staff members, an annual combined salary of in excess of £30 million a year. And do you know how they travelled from London to Manchester last year? By plane. What a bunch of hypocrites. Same as Prince Harry, same as Meghan Markle, all the other hypocrites funding Just Stop Oil, Extinction Rebellion, flying everywhere, not giving a damn. Because you know what? They know that the situation isn't as serious as they're flogging to the public.
Let me also... let's rewind a little bit. Exactly all of these arguments have been made before on renewable energy. That's the reason why we've improved our standing in terms of environmental standards in the UK. That's why the energy mix has transformed, is we invested in renewable energy, and guess what? It worked.
We still rely mainly on coal to fund to fuel the country at the moment.
If you invest and you let the free market do its job, you'll see exactly the same happening with these electric ambulances. The charging times will reduce, they'll get the range will increase, and everybody's happy. Of course the technology's not there now. Of course the technology is not there now, I accept that. But you need to consistently invest if you're going to see improvement.
So you accept the technology's not there. The range at the moment is on average 74 miles before needing a 4-hour recharge of an ambulance. So you accept the technology's not there. Why are they introducing it now?
Well, this is why we need to expand this pilot scheme. But we're not talking about something that's going to be happening immediately. We're talking about a net zero plan up until 2040, which, by the way, almost every single country in the world has committed to these net zero plans.
All the scientists agree, apart from the ones who don't want to be defunded.
All right. I'm going to bring in the rest of the panel now. I mean, what I would say to that, though, is actually well argued both, but I think the low traffic neighbourhoods that have blocked ambulances, for example, are a sign of this direction that we're going in. And I think, once again, Kai, your evidence that Labour is placing ideology ahead of evidence, and which is putting people at risk.
I don't really know how the Labour Party gets into this. I mean, you really shoehorn that one in, Darren.
By 2030, they want to actually, as far as the grid's concerned, completely get away from fossil fuels. How the hell are you going to do that?
I feel like I'm living in a different century. There's been decades of mainstream scientific consensus about the effects of climate change, which has led to all the net zero plans in every single...
Because it's literally the law. Every single big by law into this net zero con. I'm going to let Albie come in now.
Oh, I was just listening to Ben Leo speak, and I just thought, error.
Let's listen one by one.
First of all, the United Kingdom is not reliant on coal. You meant to say gas. So it's gas, not coal. The second point, I would say, is about these electric vehicles. You're talking about electrification like it is a new thing. We've been electrifying things since the mid-20th century. We all agree that electric trains are better than steam trains and diesel trains. We all agree that having electric lights are better than having gas lights. And this is just the latest step in electrification. Yes, the technology needs to go further. That is a fair point.
Right, so
hold on, I'm not finished. You had your debate. I'm talking now. We have electric cabs. They get us around London absolutely fine. We have electric vans that deliver our groceries. They get to our house absolutely fine. Why not have a trial for electric ambulances? What is your beef with a trial?
Because it's not there. The technology is not there.
Well, that's why they're doing a trial.
It takes 4 hours to charge a damning ambulance.
A trial.
I think this is why the NHS are being smart, and they are doing it as a trial before issuing it out to the wider public. I don't think the NHS are that stupid that they're going to put people's lives at risk. I don't think they are, Ben. No, I don't think they are. And to be honest, this net zero stuff is not going to go anywhere. And every public institution are going to have to keep up with the times Times, and they have to appear that they are doing something about it.
Yeah, appear to be doing something. Not that they care about it, as proven by this dedicated NHS Green team who spent 30k on domestic flights last year across England.
How are they supposed to get around?
They got a plane from London. If they cared, if we're to believe these people and the world is burning and we've got a few years left, you wouldn't get a damn plane from London to Manchester when your main job in the NHS is to promote green schemes. And also, it's not just electric ambulances. The NHS, for example, any new suppliers of medicines, any contractors, physical hardware, any kit, they now have to answer 135 questions before they're allowed to win the contract to see A, whether it abides by NHS green values, and B, whether it meets target emissions. That's going to put, as proven by this trial in the West Midlands, patients at risk.
All right, and all I can say, you know, Albie made the point there, but his favourite, Rishi Sunak, guess what he's building, folks? More gas power stations. What does that tell you? Still ahead, we're going to Ask the Five, in which we'll discuss topics sent in by you. gbviews@gbnews.com. If you want to get involved, please do. But next, we're going to get stuck in to a bunch of fives, which is going to be pretty awesome, if you ask me. Ben Leo, you better duck. You're with the Saturday Five live on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So it's been a cloudy and wet afternoon for many of us, all due to an area of low pressure that's been moving its way towards the UK through the rest of Saturday and will push its way north and eastwards overnight tonight and into the start of Sunday. This will bring some heavy rain and has already brought some heavy rain, particularly to parts of southern Scotland. We could even see some snow across the hills, and overnight and into the early hours of Sunday, some further heavy rain pushes up from the southwest, affecting parts of England and Wales. Under all that cloud and rain, it'll be a very mild night, temperatures not dropping much below 10 or 11 degrees. But further north, there will be some brighter spells, and that will allow temperatures to drop into the low single figures. So a chilly start for Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland, with some sunshine widespread across these regions in the morning. Through the afternoon, though, that band of rain pushes its way eastward, so some sunshine developing for much of England and Wales later as well. There will be some showers bubbling up through the afternoon. They could be quite heavy in places, but another very mild day. Temperatures as high as 16 or 17 degrees across the south, and even for Scotland, we could see in the double figures. Monday, a band of rain situated across the UK pushes its way eastwards, leaving a drier day for most of us. Plenty of sunshine through the rest of the morning, but for Northern Ireland, turning much cloudier as we head into the afternoon with that heavy rain arriving. It does then remain unsettled through much of next week, with temperatures widely above average for the time of year, perhaps 16 or 17.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday Five. It's now time for the Bunch of Fives. And my story this week is Holly Valance. She's made the political class dance. The songstress and the neighbour... She was in Neighbours, the actress as well. She's been in a whole host of things. But now, someone like her has come out and she said, look, I'm going to be voting Reform. She says everyone is a lefty until they wise up. The former Neighbours actress the popcorn launch, which is a popular Conservatives, launched by former Prime Minister Liz Truss, and she said she's got a desire for Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg to become Prime Minister. Now, look, I'm just going to put this out to the panel. I think it's actually quite a brave thing to do, and I'll tell you why. Because I think in the circles in which Holly Valance would have been used to operating in, to say that you are on the right of British politics would be to commit an act of heresy. So I think it is a brave and bold thing to do. She even said this week to our very own Christopher Hope that she's going to vote for the Reform Party, right? That is bold as brass, and I think good for her. We need a bit more of that. We need more people coming forward saying how they feel about things and not being so scared of the cancel culture vultures.
A rich person supports a low-tax party. What's the news story here, Darren,
Everyone
exactly?
that's an actor or a singer is rich. What's your point? They're all left-wing. Can you name many right-wing singers or actors?
None at all. And clearly she doesn't want to get back in the limelight, Darren, because, as you said, most of these celebrities, most of this social circle that I see all the time, they are lovies, they are lefties. So for her to come out and say that she is going to be supporting reform is quite controversial. And to be honest, like, fans do judge celebrities about where their political alliances are. Hence why I think Holly doesn't think she has no way coming back into any sort of stardom anytime soon.
Yes, I mean, Ben Leo, will you be giving a kiss to Reform UK?
It was a cracking tune, wasn't it? Don't ask me to sing it. Do you know what? I'm going to go against the grain here. I couldn't really care less who Holly Valance supports. It makes no difference to me, and I don't think it makes much of a difference to the rest of the electorate. You know, it's an interesting little anecdote, I guess, but I couldn't really care less.
All right, we're going to go to Albie now.
Yes, we are. Today, in fact, we learned of a plot to oust Rishi Sunak and replace him with the Leader of the House of Commons, Penny Mordaunt. Apparently, right-wing Tory MPs have been meeting with moderate Tory MPs to oust Rishi Sunak and bring in Penny Mordaunt. But Kai Wilshaw, would Penny Mordaunt as PM for PM, make you more scared about whether or not Labour could win the next election?
I mean, I think that's what I've been hearing, is that Labour Party sources find the prospect of Penny Mordaunt, you know, quite dicey, rather than some of the right-wing firebrands that we've been hearing about, Suella Braverman and Kemi Badenoch. I mean, I think they're not as concerned about that lot in the party. But, I mean, quite frankly, it's like Groundhog Day all over again. Why this constant chopping and changing? British public have had absolutely enough of this from the Tory party.
Stephanie, you're the least political on the panel. As a sort of floating voter, would Penny Mordaunt get you more excited about the Tories, or are you just thinking it's time for a change?
No, I think it'll be the final nail in the coffin if they did try get Penny to be the new leader. Look how many Conservative leaders we've gone through in the space of 4 years. Come on, stick with Rishi. He's not going to do the job, but at least let him finish the job.
All right, Steph, we're going to come to you next now.
OK. Oh, guess who's back? Guess who's back? Guess who's back? It is Meghan, our favourite royal. This week, she launched her lifestyle brand, American Riviera Orchard. Already in the space of 2 days, she has 480,000 followers. So clearly, there is appeal with Meghan launching this brand. As per usual, her critics have come out and said it's ill timing, all that's going on with Catherine and with the royal family. But hello, Meghan is about Team Meghan. You know what? She has to get back to business. And to be honest, I've got some inside info about that, because I think Meghan was actually forced to come out with this lifestyle brand on Thursday. She was actually waiting a few more weeks to do it. But again, when the media's onto things, she has to move fast. And to be honest, I think Meghan's done a good job of proving actually there is life outside the royal family. And I think people are interested in what she does next. Whether you love her or hate her, Meghan is always going to be...
Hang on, Steph, who forced her?
Who forced? I can't say that. I just say, oh, well, I said I've got inside information on that one, but yeah, she was forced to do it this week.
And finally returned to Instagram. I forced her.
I mean, well, all I would say is that grifter's going to grift. So, good luck.
What do we think of the name, though? It's a bit wordy.
It's very tacky. It has Montecito after it.
Yeah, I think she's trying to make it sound all classy, but it just didn't really hit with me. It's like,
All right, Kai next.
I respect the grift. I think it's great. She's a private citizen. She should be allowed to do whatever she wants.
Well, she should give up her damn royal title then if she's a private
why is she going around
citizen.
saying Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex?
Because that's her name.
You hate the royal family.
That's her name.
You said they drove you to near suicide.
Yeah.
You claimed that the institution's racist. If that was me, I'd want nothing to do with it.
Well,
Why
how
is she still
come the
using your
royal
title?
family haven't stripped her of the title then?
They should. They absolutely
If they
should.
don't strip it
Right,
from her,
Kai,
she can
Kai,
use
we
it.
haven't got long left, sorry.
Well, yeah, I'm really not sure about this. I hate the name, but honestly, she is a private citizen, and she use the name.
No, I meant your next, your story.
I want to keep going. No, actually, I definitely don't, because my story, I think, is a real highlight today. If there are any Potterheads in the audience, you might have been a bit offended this week when Miriam Margolyes burst onto the scene and got herself into some hot water, as she often likes to do. Now, what she has said in, I think, 2 interviews in New Zealand is that adult Harry Potter fans should grow up and move on. Now, what do we think? I've actually often thought that, you know, those adults who keep their childhood hobbies and interests into their adult life.
All right, well, hang on. I want to get the panel's opinion. This is Keith, who is our producer, and that's his wedding photograph.
Keith.
He is a Gryffindor, I think, in that picture.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not sure about weddings.
Some would say, Keith, a Griffin dork.
Quite a commitment, I think, to have a Harry Potter themed
He's going to take us off air now.
Sorry, Keith.
Right, OK.
Keep the magic alive, I say. You know, I love big kids, and I think, you know what, people should be allowed to still keep the magic of Harry Potter alive.
Amen.
Yeah, but you can still find it odd.
We've not got time for you, but it has been very
quick one. The very iconic and prestigious Sunday Times. Oh, you're not?
No.
I'm being ditched. I've been cancelled. Finally.
Up next, though, is Ask the Five, the part of the show where anything goes. You won't want to miss it. Get involved. You're with the Saturday Five live on GB News.
Free Speech Nation. Sunday nights from 7 p.m.
Our first question comes from Elliot. Elliot, hello.
Is Canada now an authoritarian state?
Elliot, I think it's been an authoritarian state for a while. I mean, under Trudeau. This is a new thing now, and this is coming from the Justice Minister, who has Arif Virani, and he has defended this new power for their online harms bill. That sounds familiar. We've got something quite similar. And they're saying they can now impose house arrest on someone who they think might commit a hate crime in the future, right? That's scary stuff, isn't it?
There's obviously a very dark side to this, because you can't, or in my opinion, you shouldn't be able to imprison somebody before they've done anything.
Right.
Well, it is Canada, and I know you in this country kind of respect Canada as a country. America didn't even know it was a country until recently, and I think that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to show themselves to be different than America.
I think America has a responsibility to invade. You know what? I do.
You know, you're kidding, but it may come down to this, or this may just be yeah, maybe.
Well, I just think it's ridiculous that the idea of arresting someone... I mean, our government's bad enough, and the Scottish government's out of control, the Irish government's out of control. They're all talking about... I mean, the Irish government's got a new hate crimes bill where they're talking about they can seize your phone if they suspect you might have some material that could potentially stir up hatred. I mean, for God's sake, what does that mean? Your phone's full of that kind of thing.
Well, the government knows that.
Yeah.
But you're right. But it has to do with the bigger picture, which is Canada has sucked itself in on the big team world. Sorry, I'm going to say it. It's big team world. And what they're doing, this is not even a free speech issue. This is just about silencing dissent against the Canadian government. It has nothing to do with openness and talk, whatever. It's like saying, we don't want these people to spread their opinions.
Dangerous opinions. That's what speech codes and hate speech laws always do.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's Live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday Five. Now, this is the part of the show where anything goes. Earlier in the show, we asked for your questions, and we've received these replies. Anne has written in, good evening, Anne. She says, oh, well, we sort of touched on this. Would we treat Meghan the same as Kate if she had a major operation?
No.
She's not the Princess of Wales, so
we
probably
wouldn't.
not.
No, we would not. People would be all up in her grill. They would be saying that it was some sort of hoax. Darren, you'd be coming up with some reason why, you know, it was self-inflicted, she was doing it for attention. The attitude would be completely different.
I'll tell you what would be different, because no one would care. Meghan's a nobody, Kate's the future.
I mean, she's obviously not a nobody.
I'll tell you why it would be different, because Meghan would tell us the far end of a sodding
She'd be selling Netflix.
She'd be doing a documentary from her hospital bedside.
Right,
It'd just be perfect.
Christian asks, do you think all news channels are making a big mistake? When discussing extremism and terrorism, comparisons are exclusively made between Islamist extremism and right-wing extremism. Surely the more useful and accurate comparison would be between the Islamist threat and Christianism threat.
Well, I'll tell you something. This will end any discussion about it. 90% of those on the UK's terror watch list are Islamists.
Christian was his name. I'm just wondering what Christianism is. Actually, I think it's quite interesting that we just had an email from someone called Christian about Christianism. I'm not really sure what it would be. Maybe we need a definition for it, Darren. What do you think?
But, I mean, I'll be happy. Do you think Michael Gove focused too much on the... He wanted to be balanced, so he focused on a couple of far-right groups that nobody's heard of, but the Islamist threat, as Ben says, is actually the threat that poses problems for the country on a wider basis.
Look, we do just have to be honest about what the main threat is to UK security when it comes to extremism. It is Islamist extremism. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be vigilant about other forms of extremism. On this new definition of extremism, the question is, do we need it? The police have the powers to arrest these people. They don't use the powers. So what are new powers going to do, would be my question to the Community Secretary.
Ben Leo, what I would say is that I'm worried about this definition of extremism, right? Because I'm worried that actually on university campuses with academics and all the rest of it, that actually it'll create a feeling of, well, it'll be against free speech, where people feel unable to actually criticise the likes of the Islamist threat and others, because they'll be worried about being accused of being an extremist.
Yeah, I'd be banged up. And do you know what the Tories have done with this? They are opening the door for Labour to come in within a year and go even further on it. So, you know, I mean, I don't know why they include... The far right is a clear threat in this country, but nowhere near the levels of Islamist extremism. I was in the London Bridge terror attack in 2017. I'll never forget that on London Bridge. It happened again years later. Westminster, Lee Rigby. It goes on and on and on.
Kai, are you going to put all of us, one Labourer, in? Are you going to put us all in a gulag?
You'd love that, wouldn't you? Well, no, let me... Look. There are extreme forms of Islam and there are extreme forms of Christianity, and both can be dangerous. Yeah. Both are quite allied, actually, with far-right views in some countries. We've seen exactly that in the United States, this kind of extreme form of evangelicalism.
Well, when was the last time an extreme Christian blew up the Metro Radio Arena in Manchester?
No, I mean, you're picking out individual instances.
I mean, they can go on and on.
To try and pretend that it's a much bigger threat from these communities.
It is a big threat.
There needs to be more balance in news coverage about such faiths, because I think it taints the whole of those followers, like people who are Islamic and who are Muslims, like they fear that they're going to be called a terrorist, where actually Islam is a peaceful religion, but the news won't tell you that because we're too busy tainting everyone as terrorists that are Islamic.
Yes.
There needs to be a balance.
Exactly, and to tar one whole faith with the same brush of some extremists, some really
no one does. That's why we call them Islamists.
Well, that's what happens when you've got power as a news station and you're not balancing out the news stories about these things.
Well, I think we've had quite a balanced discussion about it this evening, actually. And look, I think it is perfectly reasonable to say the majority of terror attacks in this country in the 21st century have been conducted by Islamist extremists. You know, that is not something which is untrue, and we shouldn't be scared to say that, should we?
Well, but then there should be also more support for the Islamic faith as well, if they feel like they are being penalised for the actions of the few.
The Archbishop of Canterbury came out and wished everyone a happy Eid. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland came out and wished everyone... We've had a Muslim war memorial announced in the budget.
Quite right. All of those things.
Absolutely not.
Why shouldn't the Prime Minister say happy Eid?
You will go on about that all the time. We're at the end of that. That could have gone on, though. Thank you very much to the guests, Matthew Stadland tonight. Next up, the brilliant Leo Kirst. Cheers for watching. See you next week.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So it's been a cloudy and wet afternoon for many of us, all due to an area of low pressure that's been moving its way towards the UK through the rest of Saturday and will push its way north and eastwards overnight tonight and into the start of Sunday. This will bring some heavy rain and has already brought some heavy rain, particularly to parts of southern Scotland. We could even see some snow across the hills, and overnight and into the early hours of Sunday, some further heavy rain pushes up from the southwest, affecting parts of England and Wales. Under all that cloud and rain, it'll be a very mild night, temperatures not dropping much below 10 or 11 degrees. But further north, there will be some brighter spells, and that will allow temperatures to drop into the low single figures. So a chilly start for Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland, with some sunshine widespread across these regions in the morning. Through the afternoon, though, that band of rain pushes its way eastward, so some sunshine developing for much of England and Wales later as well. There will be some showers bubbling up through the afternoon. They could be quite heavy in places, but another very mild day. Temperatures as high as 16 or 17 degrees across the south, and even for Scotland we could see in the double figures. Monday, a band of rain situated across the UK pushes its way eastwards, leaving a drier day for most of us. Plenty of sunshine through the rest of the morning, but for Northern Ireland, turning much cloudier as we head into the afternoon with that heavy rain arriving. It does then remain unsettled through much of next week, with temperatures widely above average for the time of year, perhaps 16 or 17.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Want to be a winner?
You've won £18,000.
I'm flipping heck. I don't know what to say.
Enter our massive spring giveaway with 3 big seasonal prizes to be won. There's £12,345 in tax-free cash to give your finances a spring boost. We'll also send you on a shopping spree with £500 worth of vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. You'll also get a garden gadget package. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio, and online.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, coming up on the Saturday Night Showdown. According to comedian and bread roll dodger Nish Kumar, the UK invented racism. Apparently before this, all tribes of the earth were holding hands in perfect harmony. We'll also have a roundup of this week's craziest conspiracy theories. So if you really want to know what's happened to Kate or which politicians' wives are transgender, stay tuned for that. And an investigation into food delivery firms shows that drivers are renting their accounts out to illegal migrants in a new ballooning black market. This is your Saturday Night Showdown. And discussing all tonight's topics, my brilliant panel joining me tonight are comedians Bruce Devlin and Ryan McDonnell and broadcaster Precious Muir. But first, let's get your latest news headlines from Aaron Armstrong.